few seconds, but welcome again, anyways. And as I said, me and Anna Maria will be the ones who control this webinar. Uh, the agenda for it is that we will welcome and talk a little bit about Open Tradegate Sweden. We will have a presentation of the market study Medtech. We will have sort of a panel discussion or Q&A and then at the end we will have questions from you. If you do have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat and we will read them up at the end of the webinar. So yes, our sort of international development cooperation, we have two sort of functions. We have Open Tradegate Sweden, which I will focus on now. We help companies export to Sweden, or as we say, we do import promotion to Sweden from low and middle income countries. So that is our mission and our mandate that we work with. We are sort of Open Tradegate Sweden supports companies and low and middle income countries to export to Sweden and the EU. We do trainings, coaching, and sort of other matchmaking. We help companies become ready to export to Sweden and build sustainable business relationships. And also to sort of increase their export opportunities and greater prosperity in the countries that we work with. We have what we call the point of contact or the first contact, which is these sort of things. We have webinars, which is for all companies from low and middle income countries. It's free sort of information regarding standards, regulations, and buyer preferences, trends, and sort of market in general on a few different sectors. We also have webinar market studies, which we posted. We have a market study we will talk about later, which is obviously the Medtech one. And then we have a digital export guide, which is Road to Export, which exists on our website. Our focus areas are tech, textiles, and the food sectors. So these are the sectors that we have projects in, but also we do market studies and webinars on. We match suppliers in a supply in partner countries with sort of demand in Sweden. And then we have something called, as I said, the Road to Export. This is shortly about it's a step-by-step guide on how to export to Sweden. This is based primarily, firstly, for products, but this can be adapted also for services as well. I know things like logistics and those sort of questions are not as a big thing when it comes to services as it might be for products, but this is a really good way to show a little bit and to learn a little bit more where in your exporting journey you are, how prepared you are, if you have the requirements that are there, if you know, and if you are prepared, basically. Then we have something called building capacity or capacity building. This is something that we do in our long-term projects with specific companies from countries that we work in. We work with these companies. We get them to get to know the market, getting ready and starting doing business, and then also trying to stay in the market. We do this by giving them coaching and trainings for them to adopt their products or service to the Swedish and European market, and also be able to increase their chances of staying in the market afterwards. We also usually take them to Sweden for them to learn more about the Swedish market and how they sort of function. An example is the tech sector in Ukraine and Moldova. Its purpose is that the Tech Step Sweden aims to strengthen the capacity of tech companies to establish on the Swedish market. This is a project that Anna Maria is in charge of, and it's a 15-month export program with training, coaching, and networking. And the results is a sort of a strength, business capacity, and networks in Sweden with potential for future partnerships. So the idea is that they come to Sweden and learn more about the sort of market and also have the coaching online and in person. So we do everything we can to try to get them to get into the Swedish market. And what have we achieved? We have advisors of 1,000 companies. So around 1,000, we have a sort of inbox, which is Open Tradegate or otgs@kommerskollegium.se. And this is open for all companies from low and middle income countries to write the questions regarding certifications, trends that they feel they want to learn more about. So we're focusing on the Swedish market, and I usually refer them either to a market study we have done market study other actors that might have done, or other sort of governmental agencies that might be able to answer this better than I do. And we all established this year, we've celebrated yesterday actually 20 years as Open Trade Gate Sweden. And we want to establish a sort of long-term trade relationships. So in summary, we do on short-term basis, we do these market studies and webinars, and also on our webpage, we have the Road to Export, which is, as I said, an export guide to get you ready for the Swedish market. Then we have a long-term in these projects or capacity building, as I mentioned in one of the slides, is to contribute to new export opportunities and increase employment, which eventually will lead to sustainable societal development in the country itself. So this is a sort of long-term projects and long-term goals that we do in the projects and with our work. So yes, this is very, very shortly about this. And now I will hand over to Anna Maria.
Good. Thank you very much, Oscar, and welcome everybody to this webinar, in which we will focus on the Swedish Medtech market, which is a growing market offering opportunities both for companies from developed countries, but also more and more for companies from developing countries. It is an area where Sweden is one of it's very strong on innovation, but there is definitely place for new actors offering innovative products or services. And together with us today, we have 3 experts that participated and helped us elaborate the study about the Swedish Medtech market that Oscar will soon share in the chat. And the idea is that during the next 45 minutes, we will give you a little bit of a background about where the market stands today and the development and trends. And then we will have a discussion related mostly to practical aspects that maybe a study not always is capturing. Together with us, we have Katalin Vikuk. Katalin is CEO of PsychiWiser. And Katalin, you have long experience of the health sector with a special focus on mental health. And you have a very, very strong background in research and strong competence when it comes to regulatory compliance. And you work also with quite a lot with innovation as the innovation manager at the Medicon Valley Alliance. I thought one of their projects. Welcome, Katalin. And you will help us with a little bit of background to present the study. And after we get some good image about the Swedish market, then we will have a short panel with Helena Holma and Will Gray. And Helena is CEO and CEO and co-founder of Lady. You are, Helena, an experienced physician with a really long experience in healthcare, digital health, and product development. And Will, you are CEO and co-founder of Reconnect Sweden, and which is focusing on medtech innovation. And you are an experienced entrepreneur with a passion for business development and interest in creating niche digital products. So this is I think this is the perfect setup to to look both at the product side and the service side in the medtech market. But we'll start with a short presentation by Kathleen, who will introduce us to the Swedish market for medtech. Please, Kathleen.
Thank you, Anna-Maria, for the introduction. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So my name is Kathleen Viguk from PsychWiser, and I'll be sharing key insights from our Swedish MedTech market report developed together with Will Gray and from Reconnect and with expert input from Helena Holma at Layer. The focus today is on how exporters can successfully enter and navigate Sweden's medtech landscape. Let's take a quick look at the agenda. So first of all, we'll start by defining what do we mean by medtech and why it's not the same as health tech. Then we zoom in on the details and conditions of the market, followed by highlighting opportunities we extracted from several interviews with medtech companies being present on the Swedish market. We'll finish up with a brief overview of the regulatory requirements and explore strategies that can help you set foot in Sweden. So what do we mean by medtech? When we talk about medtech in this report, we mean devices, equipment, and software used by healthcare professionals for either diagnosis, monitoring, or treatment. It's different from the broader health tech category because it's highly regulated under the EU medical device regulations and in vitro device regulations. In contrast, healthcare technology or health tech is a broader category that includes digital tools and services designed to improve healthcare delivery or management. It can be, for example, wearables, fitness trackers, wellness apps, but still, if their intended purpose or intended medical use is for diagnosing, treatment, or monitoring a disease, then they fall under the medtech category. So the distinction matters for procurement and regulation. Why Sweden matters? Sweden is a small market, but it's very influential. It's an advanced, innovation-friendly healthcare system and an early adopter of digital health and remote care. Because the system is decentralized, there are multiple entry points for pilots. And importantly, Sweden acts as a gateway to the Nordic and EU markets. Sweden is also a global leader of medtech innovation, particularly in digital health, AI, and telemedicine. There are over 2,100 medtech companies on this market, and there are 3 big regional clusters. On the north, we have Stockholm, Uppsala. In the middle, around Gothenburg, we have Västra Götaland. And in the south, where we are also based, there is Skåne. And Sweden imported about $3.9 billion worth medtech in 2023. Around 40% of this came outside of the EU, with a rising share from low and middle income countries. The demand is the strongest in imaging, diagnostic imaging, electrodiagnostics, and remote monitoring tools. For exporters, the sweet spot is the products that integrate with digital platforms, meet EU regulations, and show efficiency and sustainability benefits. Sweden's healthcare system is highly decentralized, as I mentioned before. There are 21 regions. They are responsible for running the hospitals and specialist care. And 290 municipalities are responsible for managing long-term and social care. Everything is tax-funded and mainly public, with private providers usually contracted by the regions. So the public sector outsources services to the private sector depending on their capacity constraints. Because each region makes its own procurement decisions, requirements can vary slightly region by region. So solutions with strong clinical evidence, quality, and cost effectiveness tailored to these regional needs have the best chances of acceptance and reimbursement. So how do you get into this market? The market has a clear focus on integrated care. Regions invest over $1.2 billion each year in healthcare IT. And 90%, for example, 99% of prescriptions are digital, for example. Private sector procurement is quicker and often happens through direct sales, partner networks, or pilot collaborations. So smaller companies can often piggyback on major players like Siemens or Philips through embedding their technology in these larger systems. But partnering with local integrators can also help bypass the lengthy tender procedures and ensure or help with compliance. However, it may reduce your brand visibility and tends to restrict pricing. To navigate this landscape successfully, it's crucial to select appropriate distribution channels and engage directly with regional healthcare authorities. As I mentioned before, high growth areas include telehealth, digital therapeutics, remote monitoring, imaging, and AI-powered tools. Now, exporters need to be integration ready. And lucky for you, we have Helena Holma here from Layer, who might be able to answer your questions regarding integration. It helps if you are able to plug directly into the hospital IT environments. So if you position your product as an add-on that complements the existing systems, it's often a more successful strategy than trying to sell a standalone solution. Now, the procurement landscape can be challenging because of this fragmentation of the market, but if you approach it with good strategy, you have really good chances to make a deal. Yeah, about 80% of Medtech purchases are through public procurement and 20% through private channels. So tenders are often shaped by existing contracts, which can make it a bit hard for new solutions to fit in. There are innovation-friendly routes like pre-commercial procurement or public procurement of innovation, but they're underutilized. What does it mean? So the pre-commercial procurement is used when a public authority wants to develop and test a new solution that doesn't exist yet. In that case, they're going to fund R&D and prototype development, but not commercial deployment. And with the public procurement of innovation, they use it when an innovative product already exists but isn't widely adopted, and the public sector acts as an early customer to help bring it to the market. So here the goal is to accelerate the uptake of proven innovation. Both are meant to help companies access public buyers, but as I said, they're underutilized in Sweden. And many pilots don't scale beyond testing phase. This we call the pilot trap. So it's very important to build good relationships with the potential buyers that can help you move out of this pilot trap. Direct procurement is also possible, but only for contracts under about $74,000 per year. And also, if you have CE marking, you may still need to go through some extra usability or feasibility testing and IT testing. So success depends on early stakeholder engagement, understanding procurement pathways, and aligning with existing systems. Key trends. There are a few key trends that are good to be aware of. regional healthcare systems are under financial pressure. So buyers now prioritize efficiency and long-term savings. Sustainability has become a formal part of procurement. It's very important to show that you have efficient energy use, the hosting is local, and the life cycle impact is also important information for the buyers. There's also more scrutiny of data origin and cybersecurity, especially for software. And we're seeing consolidation and partnerships through mergers and acquisitions a lot these days. And inclusion and gender equality increasingly influence funding and procurement decisions too. So in short, to succeed, you need to show value, compliance, and sustainability and align with Swedish values. So now let's check what sort of requirements you need to live up to on this market. So you have 4 fronts that you need to cover. First, the medical device regulation and in vitro device regulation compliance. And for non-EU based manufacturers, you need to appoint an EU-based authorized representative and register with the Swedish Medicines Authority. The authorized representative is the one that represents the manufacturer or yourselves before the authorities, shares responsibility for regulatory compliance, and coordinates with importers and distributors who must verify CE marking, documentation, and continued conformity. Second is data protection, general data protection regulations. And on top of that, in Sweden, we have the Swedish Patient Data Act, the Coherent Documentation Act, and it is very important to host data locally if possible. The third is quality and interoperability. So there are some standards that are globally accepted and required, including in Sweden, the ISO 13485 for quality management systems. Sorry. The 14971, the risk management, and then we have the 62304 software life cycle. Don't worry if you don't know these. We've listed them in the report. And then clinical validation, the 4th front. It's very important to comply with the ISO 14155 and good clinical practice in your trials. There are, of course, AI requirements emerging. You need to keep following those. Right now they're under some reshaping. Now, how do you find a business partner when you have all this in place? In Sweden, you don't just sell a product, you build relationships. So Swedish buyers rarely go out hunting for new solutions. Their needs are shaped by what they already know, either from online sources or through word of mouth. That's why a local footprint is key. Local collaborations and research partnerships build credibility. And if you can work on early adoption by a teaching hospital, for example, you can amplify your reach through the next generations of clinicians who can become your anchors within the system. There are key networking events and associations and regional innovation hubs, which I'm not going to list right now. But if you look at this, this map on the right side, you can find it via the link. It's been drawn by Tech Barbecue organizers, and Tech Barbecue is also an event that's worth attending. It's a huge fair here in Denmark, in Copenhagen, with a great opportunity for networking. So in short, partnerships and visibility matter more than cold tenders. In conclusion, to wrap up, Sweden's decentralized system offers many access points, but you need a really good, clear strategy how to attack it. Compliance is non-negotiable. You have to have CE marking, be GDPR compliant, and have a QMS in place. Partnerships with local distributors or clinical institutions can open doors. And patience pays off because the life cycle, sales cycles can be very long. But trust, documentation, and sustainability commitments build lasting relationships. So trade compliance not as a hurdle, but as a gateway to the wider EU market. And if you'd like to explore how to bring your solution to Sweden or the EU market, or have any follow-up questions, then feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or via email. And if you go on this QR code, you can find our contact details. Thank you. Sorry, I have a cold.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I can fully understand you because it feels like there are a lot of colleagues here at the National Board of Trade that have the same challenge with a cold. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for giving us a good ground to build on and to understand the Swedish market and what are the trends, how the market looks like, and I really liked the idea that you said that compliance is crucial. Because we see that, especially, it's for all the sectors that we work with at OTGS, but for the tech sector, I would say that the compliance is really, yeah, it could be a business breaker or so. I think we go to the next point and we discuss shortly with Will and Helena, and I'll try to pick your brains from your practical experience and to add more to Kathalin's presentation. And I would like to ask the audience, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will pick them before the end. Because if my planning is holding, then we will have time left to answer questions. But I was thinking I would like to continue on the path with compliance, and we heard that there are many requirements that companies need to fulfill in order to be able to sell their products on the market. And this compliance burden is getting bigger and bigger. I mean, you have the GDPR and you have the EU MDR, and then you have the AI Act and so on. And I was thinking, Will, maybe you can help us start the discussion by answering these questions. How do smaller medtech companies manage to stay agile and innovative while meeting all this heavy regulatory and data security demands that we have on the market right now?
Happy to give my input. I think it's very important to understand that this area is non-negotiable. It's not a nice to have. EU regulation has fundamentally changed from the transition from MDD to MDR. There's no question that that is a bigger burden on all companies. But companies or startups that have an understanding of the requirements as early as possible and manage to balance that kind of discipline of product iteration alongside well-documented process are going to have a much better success rate. You have to see it as the market entry is aligned with regulatory compliance. Those two things are walk hand in hand and are required. So having that mindset from a very early stage, making sure that somebody in your company is responsible and understanding the pathway to the market through regulation is going to mean that you have a much higher success rate.
Good. So having somebody in the company that actually do work with compliance issues and keep track of those, it's one of those things that the companies need to think about and consider. Helena, what is your take on this? Do you fill in a little bit?
Yes. And thank you, Kathleen, for a great presentation. All the answers are sort of in that presentation. And I agree with it's a non-negotiable when you're in this field. However, you also need to understand which of the regulations really are applicable to your solution, because not every regulation will be. So don't try to be sort of over compliant, because that's not gonna be beneficial. You need to be very specific on what applies to your specific solution and find a strategy to balance that, because it's also at what stage your company is, how to approach those regulations. But once you have found your strategy in the regulatory space, it's going to be your competitive advantage as well to enter the market and to stay in the market and to build trust. So it's just embrace the regulations is my advice.
Embrace the regulation, but I also like the idea that you need really to understand your product in order to identify the relevant regulations and not to just go broad. That could also probably save some money as well, and also give you more credibility. If we think about one of the things that Kathleen talked about is it's the pilot trap. It seems that you start with a pilot and you think that hooray, I'm on the market, but sometimes you are stuck with a pilot and you cannot scale. How is it from your experience, Will and Helena? What are the biggest practical barriers to scale up a Medtech solution in the Swedish market? And do you have any practical advice how it could be overcome? I don't know, maybe Will would like to start and Helena would like to fill in.
Yeah, I think Kata brought it up on her kind of nearly the last slide, the 4 kind of key points there. Clinical validation is important, so you're going to need to kind of find the correct pathway. Pilots are a good way to do that. But you know, I would say that the Swedish market is reasonably conservative. It's risk averse. So you know, healthcare authorities and buyers are looking for good validation of you know, a company's product and the claims that it makes and you know, the outcomes that it should be able to achieve. So yeah, I think getting those opportunities before you approach this market is going to be much easier. Getting them in the Swedish market is a challenge. I think it's a challenge for Swedish early stage companies. So I think bringing as much validation and evidence before approaching this market is going to make you a much more leaner, agile object.
Right. So Helena, would you like to fill in?
Yes, and I think Kathleen called it a pilot trap. I'm a medical doctor. I've also heard the term pilotitis that we have in Sweden, that they don't like, you just continues with one pilot and then another pilot and it doesn't scale beyond that. And I think a pilot is really good to get the first footprint and get to start your network. But also doing a pilot with the knowledge that it probably won't be a prolonged partnership. So what can we get out of this pilot for it to be successful anyway? Like clinical validation or building a business case, metrics that we can use in our next conversations, and also marketing, of course, that you are in Sweden, that you have this collaboration. So I think there are lots of benefits with pilots, as long as one is aware of what you want to achieve with that and not count on it being prolonged.
Right. Do I hear also that you need to have a plan in how to scale that to the
Yes.
next level, and not to just be happy that now I have one?
Yeah.
And I pick from Will that bring a lot of validation before looking at the Swedish market. That is also important to have with you in the package. I think we will move on to another painful area, because compliance is one, but then the procurement, it could be also one of those challenging areas, not only in Sweden, I think that in many other markets as well. We heard that the procurement is highly decentralized, and it is often that when you come to the IT department, it could take a stop, actually, because they are the gatekeepers in the process. From your experience, Helena and Will, what kind of strategies did you find most effective in order to identify the right decision makers at an early stage and build trust, which is so needed in order for new technical solutions to be adopted and win in a procurement process? Helena, maybe you want to start now.
Yes. Yes, I think first of all, figuring out the requirements on beforehand as part of the market research. We did that, for example, with Layer when Layer, my company, was only a PowerPoint, because you have the regulatory requirements. Those are quite comprehensive, but at the same time easy to get access to. And then there can be specific requirements, information security requirements within a certain hospital or within a certain region that can be trickier to actually understand and get access to. But just by reaching out on beforehand as part of the research, asking for those requirements, it gives actually a good impression that you are serious, because you want to know before you are selling something. And it's also part of making the first connection when you are asking about those specific questions, if there are requirements that you can get access to. Also, those requirements, if we're talking just information security, for example, they can differ between the 21 different regions. So it's overall, they are very much alike, but there can be specific details that differ. So yeah, that's my practical advice. Just doing as part of market research, reaching out to IT departments to understand.
But Will, would you like to add?
I think in our report, Kata and I interviewed Henrik at Saturion, who's a very experienced sales executive in Medtech. And one of the points that he made was a lot of companies kind of, maybe they've got a cardiology device and they just start hammering emails to all of the cardiologists and all of the, the senior people in the departments. And I think that's a really bad approach to the Swedish market. What you will find is everybody's super aware of procurement and the requirements and the needs and everything. And actually finding the right pathway through the stakeholders is very important. And not doing that the right way is actually, it's going to slow you down. So, like Helena says, finding out who is the owner of the requirements, getting the information from there, and then identifying who is the next person to talk to, and the next person, and finding the right channel, and not just having a shotgun sales approach to the market is very important.
So more like a strategic approach, even if it will take much longer because you really need to do your homework in detail and identify the right person. It will take time, but it will ensure success, or it's possible to increase your rate of success by doing it in a more strategic way. And I also pick from Helena the idea that you need to think maybe the compliance requirements, when you read them, you think that you understand them, but checking with the people that actually implement those requirements, it's also important to understand what is their take on those particular issues, so that you can adopt to those. Helena, you should or Will, you should chip in and say if I'm completely wrong on how I understand. Okay, and then I was thinking that we just heard that there are quite differences between the different regions in Sweden. They have different kind of infrastructure, and these systems don't always match. I believe that Helena, you are the expert in this part of interoperability between the different systems. How do you handle this interoperability and integration when scaling across regions? Do you have any particular tips?
So, yes, and this I can elaborate quite much on. But so when it comes to Sweden, it's quite a difficult market when it comes to interoperability for many reasons. But currently, this year, many of the Swedish regions have exchanged their EHRs from legacy system to a new system, and 19 out of the 21 regions will use the same, and 2 other ones will use another system. So there's a lot happening, which means also that integrating with those systems are not currently prioritized because they are rolling out and focused on that implementation phase. Which means that to actually get access, I think it's good that if you have a product that is not completely depending on integrations, you can have that as part of your roadmap, but the first implementation is as how to say, a standalone product, but it can be fully integrated with the EHRs. And for a pilot, for example, it's not common that you integrate your product during a pilot phase. So that's the next step. Also, when it comes to integrating new products to the infrastructure, it always comes down to that you need to have a healthcare provider who requests that integration. And healthcare provider is the customer, the end customer, the end user. So I think that's critical to have. And another thing then is that because since you need to have a healthcare provider, it often is the chicken and egg solution. The healthcare provider might require that you have the integration in place for them to buy it, but you need a healthcare provider to be able to get the integration in place. And then it can be valuable to actually show from a technical perspective, even if it's not live in production, you can show that we have integrated with this EHR from a technical perspective. We can do this. Yeah, that's
good. Excellent advice. And I was thinking like this, that maybe we should open the floor for questions. And Oscar, can you help me pick from the questions that we got? Did any of them
Yeah, I
your
can
attention?
take one of the questions I saw. Someone asked if it's wise to launch a new product first in Sweden, or would it be better to launch it in a bit more flexible market like Estonia or Netherlands and then engage with Sweden later? I don't know who wants to start answering that. Katarina
Italy,
wants to.
Katarina.
Yeah.
I have a thought about it. I think it also depends on the product, but it also depends where in the development stage of the product you are. If you still need validation, clinical validation, then maybe it's easier to go on in the Baltics and somewhere else. But if you have everything in place already, then in Sweden you can put yourself in a really strong position. I don't know if you guys agree with this.
Will and Helena, would you like to add?
Yeah, I think it's important to find that clinical validation, as you mentioned. Also, I mean, the benefit of launching a product in the Swedish market is that it's so regulated that it's easy to go abroad once you have established yourself. And if you start with a more flexible market, you still need to have in mind what you need to fulfill for the Swedish market later on, very early.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just add a small point that I think one of the reasons why the Swedish healthcare system is a little bit conservative is because they fear products that use the market as a test environment before going off to America, because it's a much bigger, more lucrative market. So if you've been to Estonia, or if you've been to Latvia, or you've been to, kind of other Northern European, Baltic environments, markets, and proven your product and shown that you have a commitment to those environments, then that's a great way to prove to the Swedish market that you are committed and you're not going to disappear after 6 months of piloting and, or commitment, and disappear to a bigger market and make that your greater focus.
Right. Oscar, would you like to take one more question?
Yes, there
From the
is
chat.
another question. What kind of medtech innovations are currently most in demand by Swedish healthcare regions? For example, AI, diagnostics, or example. You can give other sort of examples which you feel is the most in demand.
Maybe Katta could
So-
take that.
Skåne region has recently launched data lakes, which is a pool of data that you can access for product development. And the data is from registers and national registers and also patient data, of course, metadata. But they told in their webinar that as a starter, they're most interested in imaging, developing imaging solutions and diagnostic solutions. So AI based diagnostics, and also remote monitoring and elderly care. I think they're all quite in demand.
That is excellent. I don't know, Helena and Will, would you like to add anything there?
Yes, I can. Just what we see is a lot of AI in different topics, sort of a lot of AI scribes, medical note-taking. And then what I have been seeing is also AI voice agents. Not that established, but I get more and more questions from companies developing those.
Okay, so yeah, even that is maybe an opportunity. Good. But I think that I would like to ask one more question actually before we end this session, and this is for all three of you. I know that I didn't prepare Katta for this, but I hope that it's okay. And we talked a lot about that Sweden is a market where you need to build trust. And at the same time, Sweden is a highly developed market. What would be your advice for a company coming from a lower middle income country to work with these two areas. How to build trust on the Swedish market when maybe you're completely unknown, and how to position in a way that is attractive for a Swedish buyer. Do you have any practical advice around this? Who would like to start? Maybe Helena.
Happy to start. I think that as long as you don't compromise with quality, as we have said, you're in a very good position to actually, if you have developed your product within a low-income country, for example, to be very competitive on the Swedish market in combination with quality. Being flexible and actually listening to the users' needs, the healthcare providers, listening to their requirements, taking that into consideration, and then be fast in adapting your solution. That's going to give you a very good position to build trust quite fast, to show that you listen, that you take into consideration the local requirements. Yes.
Very good advice. Kathleen, would you like to fill in?
Yeah, I think I agree with Helena 100%. And I think also personal relationships, going to networking events, meeting the buyers in person is very important. Because as I said, most of the time procurement departments don't know what surgeons need. The surgeons will tell them, but the surgeons need to know what's out there in order to be able to tell the procurement departments, right? So personal relationships, attend networking events, be there at the fairs like Tech Barbecue or Medica in Germany, where you can meet your buyers.
Right. Will, would you like to?
Yeah, I think what Kata says is correct, and also you'll be able to meet the kind of state actors, the support ecosystem and the innovation ecosystem players who will know the correct pathway in. I think also something that we were talking a little bit about earlier was if you did find yourself in a procurement, one of the things you might find is that you're not talking to the most technical player or stakeholder in that process. So focusing and making sure that you talk about benefits and outcomes and these kind of things, and then once you get to the point where you are in discussions about implementation or pilots, these things, that's kind of where you want to start to bring in the technical, especially if you depend on integrations, APIs, and dependencies. Bringing that up at the earlier stage may just be a blocker for you. You want to focus on what are you going to bring to that patient or the outcome, and then once you get to the point where you've established that you can bring some value there, and you'll go into more technical conversations with the right stakeholders. That will be the right approach from my perspective.
Excellent, very valuable. Thank you very much, Will. I can see that there is in the chat a question which I believe we already maybe covered. It says that emailing is probably not the best approach to take a first contact in Sweden. Is this even when it comes to a concrete message, or is just in general that now I hope that I interpret correctly the question. It's more like if you have a concrete offer, do you send it by email, or is just still coming in person, understanding the market first before putting anything on the table?
Right. I think there isn't a problem with email itself. I think it's identifying the right stakeholder and making sure that they are, because I mean, like any sales process of any product, if you're not talking to the right person who understands the needs of the organization, the budgets, what they are looking to procure, and you'd be surprised, even people who appear to, you might be talking to a surgeon or something in that process, you may not be talking to the right person, or they may not be interested in dedicating their time. So really knowing the organization that you're going to approach. And I would say that the best way to do that would be to find organizations like the regions and support systems who can help you identify what is the buying behavior, what is the current need, and then you can align that. Because like Kata's map has, there's lots of regions here. They're not all totally buying the same things. So you can do your research and find out which region is your best target at the moment.
Mm-hmm. But I think this is a wonderful advice. Doing your homework and do your research is probably the very first thing before mailing anybody out anything. Do your research. Read our study. Read other. There are a lot of links to other information sources in Sweden. Feel free to contact us at Open Trade Gate Sweden, and we try also to fill in and answer your questions. I think this is a good way to start if you are interested in the Swedish market. And this is what we notice also when we work with with the companies in our project, that you need really to do your homework first because this is the one of the first steps to build trust, to show that you know what you are talking about and you have been reading a little bit before contacting the persons. Good. But thank you so much for all the input. Oscar, do we have any more questions? Otherwise,
No, I think that was all the questions we had.
I think that we can thank Katalin, Helena, and Will for taking your time, for sharing so generously from your knowledge, for being with us today, and for writing a very nice study, which we hope that it will be useful for many companies from low and developing countries that are interested in the medtech market in Sweden. And thank you very much to all of you who have been with us today. And we will send out the recording. We will publish it on our LinkedIn channel, and we will inform all of you about that in due time when we will do that. Thank you very much, Oscar, and Will, Helena, and Katalin for today. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.